Hi, I'm James Curse. I'm here with Travis Day and Jason Regier, the technical director and game designer of Diablo 3, and we're going to be talking specifically about the upcoming expansion, Reaper of Souls. The first question I have for you is, how are you going to incentivize team play in the upcoming expansion?
So co-op is something we like to focus on a lot. One of the things that we're doing in Reaper of Souls is trying to really incentivize and play up the online elements of the game. We're looking at a lot of different ways to sort of drive home the idea that we want Diablo to be about playing the game and not playing the auction house. And one of the things we're doing to help with that is we're taking some of the items that are some of the best items in the game. We're moving to a soulbound sort of environment. And the exception to that is if you're playing in a co-op game with your friends, anything that you find within the same game as your friend, you can freely exchange for a window of time. So we feel like that really helps reinforce the idea that it's a very social game.
So you talked about soul binding. How is that going to affect trading? Is that something that is kind of hard-coded on every single item pickup, or is it only for the best of the best gear? And how does soul binding work? And I guess what drove you to the decision to include that I know that kind of not soulbound items is an integral part of Diablo, at least in its early roots. So how was the decision made, and why was that made?
So the way that the soul binding is going to work in Reaper of Souls is that we're basically reserving it for the best things in the game, only for the legendary items, for the set items. Players will still be able to freely trade rare items that dropped and everything below that. So if you want to save items for a friend, you can still do that. The thing that we didn't really like when we talked about the implications of trading was sort of this idea that like trading is really important to a lot of people, but also a lot of people's only experience with trading was their friend joins their game, throws a bunch of items on the ground and says have fun and leaves. And it's a nice moment, but at the same time it really detracts from the enjoyment of finding things for yourself. So we wanted to really focus Diablo on giving players a sense of accomplishment. It's a lot harder to do that with the auction house being as pervasive as it was. And that's something that we had originally implemented because we wanted to sort of facilitate the desire for players to trade. But ultimately, after a lot of deliberation and a lot of discussion, we decided that while the idea was good, it really had a lot of negative implications for the game. So we wanted to sort of refocus it onto killing monsters and playing the game and not playing the auction house. So that's really driven a lot of the decisions on the trade front.
Cool. So for those who may not know, I think that originally it was these kind of random dungeons, but that idea has been refined, and if you didn't catch the conference that was held yesterday, the idea of adventure mode and Nephilim Rifts was announced. So can you explain to people who may have missed it what adventure mode is and what Nephilim Rifts are?
Sure. Now, as many of you know, when you play through the game right now, you have a story-based campaign, and you're playing through 4 acts. Now, Reaper of Souls brings a 5th act to that, and you can still play the story-based campaign. Now, in contrast to the original game, now all of the difficulty levels are unlocked from the beginning, so there's no more of that repeating the same story over and over again to get to that new content. But with adventure mode, we've really added this new way to play that just changes everything around. So, adventure mode, we stripped away all of those quests, all the cinematics, all the story-based elements. We unlocked all the waypoints, and in this mode, you can go anywhere, slay anything. You can get to any act you want to, anytime you want to. You can go immediately and start killing bosses. But we've added a few activities for you to do in adventure mode, the first of which is called bounties. Now, every act has 5 random bounties. They're random objectives, and they may be something as simple as go experience this event, go rescue these guys, go kill this named monster. When you do complete these objectives, you're going to get some good loot. If you complete all 5 objectives in an act, you're going to get a very special piece of loot, which is called the Nephilim Rift Key. That Nephilim Rift Key will open up a portal to a Nephilim Rift, and that Nephilim Rift is a random dungeon. It's a random multi-layer dungeon. Now, the areas that you're in, there may be tile sets that you know from the original Diablo, or from the original Diablo 3 game, but we've paired them with monsters that never would have shown up in those levels. It's a great, random, new, fresh experience that you're going to be playing. And if you kill all the monsters inside that Nephilim Rift, you're going to meet an Uber boss inside there. And that Uber boss is going to drop some pretty epic loot. And those bosses have some pretty interesting powers associated with them. You might find a monster like Gom, who usually is found only inside a sort of a little boss arena, but you might find him in sort of a very constrained space, and it's a totally different gameplay experience for you. So I think that there's tons of options with Reaper of Souls, lots of great new ways to play the game.
All right, so continuing in that same thread, I saw an excellent and kind of an arcade-style thing, kind of harkening back to the original Diablo. Going up and getting a buff really changed you for the next couple of minutes, and that was specific to Nephilim Rifts, the lightning insta-kill, insta-gib kind of buff. So I was wondering if you could tell us any more of those kind of crazy buffs that might be happening, and in addition to that, maybe elaborating on some of the random elements of the boss encounter specifically. I know that they're going to spawn right in with the monsters, so how does that affect kind of the gameplay, kind of change the gamescape of these boss fights?
Sure. So as you noted, there are definitely some new random shrines in there that really change the gameplay. Some of those are an evolution of the Nephilim Glory, which is a sort of a golden power-up that would drop on the ground. That came on the console version of the game. That's where it was originally introduced. And we introduced it because we found it changed the way that people play. So you see it drop, you rush over to it, and it makes you do crazy things for just a short period of time. And that's sort of changing the moment-to-moment gameplay is something that we totally love about the game. As for bosses, I mean, seeing a boss out of its normal context is really something that's different for people. You have to fight them in different ways. I mean, when bosses are introduced into an arena, you maybe have a set way or a set approach that you'd have to take with that boss. And seeing it in a completely different context it just makes you have to think about the way that you would encounter that fight and be pretty careful about it as a player. I think it's something pretty new.
So this is more of a specific question. A lot of us who've kind of been playing some of the endgame-ish content in the original Diablo 3 have a lot of experience with the Hellfire Ring and kind of the Ubers and that. And it's a very cool item. It's very good for leveling up alts. You know, it increases experience, has this awesome fireball effect. And I hear that there's going to be a lot more of those kind of legendary, you know, this thing's very distinct because it does this. But how specifically are those legendaries, the fact that they're going to be able to roll on any level? You know, whether it be 1 to potentially 70, how does that kind of change the gameplay? And what is going to happen to the Hellfire Ring? Is that going to level up to 70, or is that going to stay kind of 60 exclusive, and that's old content at this point?
Currently, there's not really any plan to let the old or the crafted recipes scale up. They have a very fixed role, and they've sort of fulfilled that role very well over time. Really, we're focusing on making more new and creative things. And something that we've done going along with that is we've spent a lot of time just trying to come up with the most game-changing things that we can. Something we've said around the office a lot lately is game-changing, not game-breaking. So we want things that make you as strong as we can make you without actually making the game fall apart. Today, during our panel, we showed off a lot of the sort of upcoming legendaries. We have a pair of boots that let you run through any monsters, so you can just like move right past them and never get stuck. We have bracers that give you run speed boosts whenever you break barrels or gravestones. So those sort of like change up how you view the environment. They make you very aware of like, oh man, I'm gonna go kick that barrel open, sweet, and I get to run faster. So we're really trying to come up with a lot of cool ideas along those lines. Now we're also, doing what we can to improve the old legendaries as well. We are taking all of the old legendaries that existed in the live game, and we're changing the entire system so that legendaries can roll at any level beyond the first time you see them. So if you find, say, Leoric Signet at level 25, you could find that anywhere from 25 all the way up through 70, and if you find a higher level version, it would have stats that are appropriate to the level of the item.
So the next question I have is kind of about the social systems in the game. I think when Diablo 3 came out, there were a number of things the community had feedback-wise, but one of them was certainly kind of the social structures and how a lot of people felt they were playing this kind of anonymous single-player, or maybe if they were playing with friends, multiplayer, but it didn't really, the gameplay didn't change as much when 1 or 2 people, and even in some extreme cases, like in Inferno, you were de-incentivized to play with players because monsters would scale up, and there were some issues there. But guilds are coming in, there's a lot of cool social systems being added to the game. So can you just kind of run down guilds and friend lists and maybe some of the social systems that are changing in Reaper of Souls?
Well, I think that playing the game and having it be a social experience is something that was really important to us from day one. I mean, I think that what you had said about Inferno difficulty, like some people really enjoy the challenge of having additional players in the game, and I think that it's, it can be really fun for some people. We are definitely like adding some more social functionality to Reaper of Souls, mostly in the form of clans and groups. Now, groups are for people who have certain social interests and want to get together with other people, so you can have lots and lots of members inside a group. Those really sort of come over from StarCraft 2, where you actually had a lot of these social groups. Now, clans, I mean, I think a lot of people are very familiar with clans and what they provide. So we're bringing over clans to Diablo 3 as well. And really, I think clans function to get more people introduced to other people. Like, if you and I were in a clan together, like, I might see one of your friends online, and that might give us a reason to go out and, meet each other. And especially with adventure mode, I think adventure mode is a great social experience. It's very easy to get into the game. It's very easy to start playing with one another, and this is just a great new way to meet people, meet friends of friends.
All right, well, Jason and Travis, thank you very much, and we're all looking forward to Reaper of Souls releasing for the PC soon, and then the console a little bit later, specifically PS4. Thank you for watching at home. This has been James Duggan with Curse. Enjoy the game.